Welcome to part two. Well, where to begin? Now, I have the instructions on my laptop, which I have to the right hand of me here. But what I am doing is installing the SAV system and making it couple up with the radio. So let's see if I can bring everything into view, okay? To explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Now, the thing is, according to the instructions, you glue the three pieces of the nose together. They go in pretty well, no real issues there. You can't get it wrong, it's only one way up. And they only go together one way, so you can't get confused about it. It's pretty easy. So what I did do after I glued it, there were some little tiny ridges, so I just sanded it down a little bit using, what grade is this? I think it's a P80, an 80 grit glass paper, just to take those little ridges off, so that when their sides go on, they go on pretty flat and even. And that's no big deal. It's okay, fine. And then what you do is you take the plywood part, which is here, and you basically stick it into this end here, which I haven't done yet. And the reason I haven't done it is because with the normal receiver or RX, this would normally go on here with some Velcro. But this is the SAVs. So you glue on the box that it comes with, this grey box, and it has to be level, which is why it's on two pieces of steel there, and that's absolutely level. Now the thing is, you have wires now that are redundant, and I was trying to figure out the best way of how does this go together, because the SAVs have no instructions in the main instructions there, so you have to apply what you can partly from the radio instructions and the SAV instructions to make that work. So I have binded the transmitter with the SAV's receiver. To do that correctly, I've had to put together the internal ducted fan. Now it goes in this way, this points towards the nose, and to do that basically you have to take the motor, put the impeller on, just pushes on, and then you put that inside the tube, little tube there inside, okay, and you make sure that the impeller just misses the internal part of that tube. And so you have to push it forward, push it back until you get it just right, get the maximum amount of thrust out of it. And then when you're ready and you think that's okay, just put a little bit of glue on the plastic parts of the metal of the motor, and making sure obviously not to get that glue in any of the works. Okay, you don't need to glue the impeller, that just pushes on. Okay, and then you put this other part to it. I just made it fit and then glued it round. I had to glass paper it slightly on the inside. There was a little ridge that was catching on the impeller, so I smoothed that down. It's perfectly fine now. In fact, I'll run it up. There you go, perfectly fine. It's not hitting anything, it's moving freely. And then you put this little ply part on the top there. I believe that's for the horizontal stabilizer. I'm not quite sure, I've not looked ahead yet. So, and then on the bottom I put some tape around where the cables come out of the ducted fan, just because I thought the hole was a little bit too large. So I want all the thrust coming out the back. I don't want anything coming out the bottom, just all out the back. So I just put a little bit of tape there on the bottom to seal that in. So that's actually quite tasty. Let me just put a bit of plastic there and I'll blow it away. There you go. Whoa! It blew a bit more than just the plastic. So you've got a lot of thrust there. So not unhappy with that at all. But when it came to the wiring up, I thought, wow, hang on a minute, because what you have to do, you have to attach the ESC or the speed controller. Now, once you know that the correct orientation for the impeller is blowing this way, what I decided to do, because these connections are both black, I've painted where the blue wire is and painted the connections blue and white. So I know if I uncouple that like this, they're going to go in the correct way. I can't get it wrong. So that's the correct way. So I identified it. But the ESC comes as a separate issue with the SAVs. Now, so the ESC, this little cable goes in to this part here. I've marked it TH for throttle. Now, if you want to know what each part does, in the transmitter manual, it tells you here. It tells you what they are here. Okay, so I know that's throttle. This is rudder, elevator, aileron, and this is your fifth channel, which I suggest is probably for things like undercarriage. So if you flick the switch, the undercarriage goes up on this radio. Okay, so that's why I've put this together ahead of the manual. I wouldn't normally do that. I'd normally say follow the instructions precisely, but I needed, this is a different setup, it's not in the instructions, so I've had to figure it out. Now, on the plywood, this is the elevator, so I've marked it elevator, aileron, and I've marked it as top. It goes this way up. This elevator servo is on the top. The aileron servo goes upside down underneath. Okay, and the orientation is correct. Let's put that back there. It's nice and level because the SAVs are trying to auto correct. And I'll check the movement, so I'll pull that down. This gives you up elevator, so that the arm will move towards the back. Okay, and of course if you want to go down, the arm will move towards the nose. Now with the ailerons, if you want to turn right, that will actually turn right that way, and left is this way. But that servo has to go upside down. I had no problem with the screws whatsoever. The screws go in quite nicely, so it's all nice and secured. With the SAVs unit, that little box, this is cut out at the back, so this bit that's full, that heads towards the nose. That has to point towards the nose. So this here is the aerial to receive the transmission. So as long as the aerial's pointing towards the nose, you've got the correct orientation. You have to make sure that that goes in nice, flat and level, and that's why I've got it raised above. That is flat and level. Okay, so I've jumped the gun. I wouldn't normally do that, but I have jumped the gun because it was easier to figure it out, because as I said, that setup is not in those instructions. Okay, so the next part, now I've tested, here's your battery and everything, so I can take this out and put it back on charge. And I know that the ducting fans go the correct way, the servos are going the correct way. I know this is level and all put in correctly, and it's all set up on the radio. To bind the SAVs to the radio, and let me get this correct. You plug in the RX, this starts then flashing, you then press in LB and then turn the radio on. This will start flashing and then it will bind to the SAVs and then it'll go solid light. Now you'll see this little LED here, this green one, that tells you what mode it's in. So, and it tells you what the modes are on the side here. So green is auto leveling, blue is assisted stabilization, and red is manual. If you want to change any of them, you have to put your hand on the RB and then switch the radio on, okay, and then press that button to change the color of the LED, and that changed the mode. Okay, and that is basically it. It's as simple as that. So I'm now going to unplug all this. I will just let you know before we go any further. See, this is now flashing to say it's been disconnected. Okay, and if the battery's low, it gives a little warning sound as well, so we'll turn that off. So I'm glad I've explained that, because I wasn't quite sure how to explain it. But the instructions for the SAVs are in here. Okay, that comes with the transmitter, so it's all in there. It's not particularly difficult to follow. May take a little bit of practice here and there, I found. I didn't get it straight away, but it's not that difficult once you sort of realise what you're doing. So on with the build. So the battery, I'm going to put over there and I'll charge it up later. So you've made your nose cone. You may have to sand it. Some people may have to. I don't think anybody probably will have to much, but I'm just trying to put a little bit of care and craft into it. And you'll see that you've got a square on the inside. Okay, that goes at the bottom. Okay, there you go. It goes at the bottom like that. You can't go wrong. It only goes one way. So now this, you've got these two slots here. They go into these slots like that, and I'll be gluing them in just a minute, so it'll look like that. And then according to the instructions, then you put your servos in, but I've just left that off because it's just easier for me to handle, because it's a different configuration using the SAVs. Hope that makes sense. Right, so after I've glued that in, I better unplug the ducted fan. So unplug that. There you go. So now I need to tidy up these cables, which I will use the supplied where have I put it? The supplied zip tie. Some people call these a zip tie, some people call them a tie wrap. I tend to call it a tie wrap. The reason is I'm a qualified electrician. We call that in the trade, but some people call it a zip tie, some people call it a tie wrap. And I will tidy up this cable. I will then glue this ply into place, and then what I will do is take this piece, which I know goes something like that. Okay, and then we'll go on there. But of course I've got to tidy up the cables first, and they just slot on to that piece of ply. But once I've got the cables tidied up, that will go there. So you now have one redundant cable, and that is the throttle cable. Okay, so don't worry about that, that's redundant. Just tie it up and curl it up with the rest of it, and I will come straight back to you, and then you'll see exactly how it should look. Okay, right then, so this is all now glued in, and this is how it should look. I've done a little bit of glass papering here just to make sure this is not protruding through too much, and everything's all smooth to the touch. The ducted fan is connected now to the speed controller, and as I said earlier, I've marked the connections white and blue, so I can't get them wrong. Okay, so the next part now is to put the right hand fuselage in place. Now you need to do a bit of a test fit here, and I'll show you why. Before I go into that, what you need to do is you can use this little screwdriver they provide if you wish. Otherwise, just use sometimes I use my tweezers, the blunt end of my tweezers, and just score the lines. Okay, but be careful when you come to the holes. Just try not to press too hard. You know, you go through. So just follow these lines, just crease them a little bit like there, just missed that bit there, look, just like that. Okay, and make sure you've done the lot there, and then once you've done that, you should be okay. Now I would advise probably offering up the test fit for the ducted fan first. Now you'll find that there's some little protrusions there. That's why you could call them little teeth if you like. There's two each side, and if you look carefully at the side there, you'll see there's also a little tooth at the back. They will fit in there, okay, like that. So I would suggest probably you just fold it in a little bit like that. Is actually gluing the ducted fan first, let that go off, and then apply the front end. Now with the front end, let's take that out for a minute. Okay, you'll see this hole here, and that goes through this part here. Now this is gives you the dihedral for the wing. Okay, so that will go through that slot there, and you offer it up, and you'll see it will blend with the shape of the front. So then you can then glue that into place on the front there. Okay, and obviously you'll come to the middle parts to support, and then put some glue there, and then that will naturally come over like so. Okay, and you'll see this other part here like a slit there. Just ignore that for now, because you'll have the ducted fan in that place there, and that should come over. So what I'm going to do, I'll go off camera and glue that in place, okay, because it'll just take too long because the glue has to set and everything else. So just do it, ducted fan here first, then go to the front, okay, and use your UFO glue. Don't use the you know, I forget what it's called, Sino or super glue. Super glue is basically Sino. I call it Sino in the modelling industry. Don't use the Sino, use the UFO glue, and let that go off. Let the ducted fan go off, and then go to the front, and then you can slip in the glue there using your toothpicks, or if you like, cocktail sticks. Okay, just have one ready for that, and you should be okay. So I'm just going to do that now, because it would just take too long on camera, and then I'll come straight back to you. Okay, so your model should look something like this now, and it's still a bit on the fragile side because it needs a top and a bottom. Now when you're gluing this, you can, as a little topical tip, use pegs to hold things in position like this, so forth, over the model. Don't worry too much, as long as they're only weak, they won't harm the phone or put dents in it or anything. So there's a little tip for you. Now what we're going to do now is put the top deck on, and this is using the supplied knife. This is the top deck here, so we're just going to cut it out of the spruce. I noticed that some Americans call this stuff a tree. It's not a tree. A tree is something that grows out of the ground. It's a spruce. Okay, there you go. And we've got to put the bottom in as well, which is what this is. So we're going to cut that there. Okay, now I highly recommend that you don't throw this away immediately, because if you have accidents with the model, you can use this as bits of spare foam. Okay, and very carefully with the battery hatch. There you go. This is the battery hatch. Be careful not to glue the hatch just around the sides. Okay, that little hole in the middle there, that's where the magnet goes to hold the hatch closed. So put this to one side carefully, okay, out of the way so you don't damage it, just in case you need it. You may not need it, I don't know. Now I'm going to reattach the ducted fan. There we go. Now we're going to do a little trial fit. Now this square hole here goes over the top of that ply like that. Okay, and it should go on something like that. Okay, now then, we're going to so I've got some ideas running through my head. I'm going to use the Foam Safe CA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it here, along here and here first, let that go off, and then do the back. So let me just see if I've got some glue coming out of there. So what we're going to do is take that off just for a minute. Glue here. Okay. Glue here. Alright, this is just to get it in place. Come back to this little bit here later. So put that into the on top of the horizontal stabilizer post. Get that lined up. Press it down. Okay. Get that flush. There we go. Stick a bit of activator on it. See, it's always best to do a trial fit before you apply glue. Yeah, that seems to want to butt up. So what we'll do, there's the ducted fan, you see, and we'll get the glue wherever I put it down. There it is, and we'll put some glue on top of the ducted fan. Okay. Then along the edge there. I think it goes all the way to the end, doesn't it? There we go. And we'll wick the rest of it in. Let's get that in place. Right, so got that little bit of a gap there. Wicking in. So you have these little tubes. We normally buy these as an optional extra from your hobby store, and we normally use these for when you're building wings and a balsa. And you call this wicking in. So you just pour it into the gap. And you can place the glue precisely when you're got the little tube there, and you just press it together like so. Now, can I hold it and wick it in at the same time? I don't know, but I can try. Just blow on it. Just to encourage it to go off. I know that's not very entertaining, but if you've never done these things before and you've never seen anybody do it, then it's worth my time to show you. Not everybody will do it the way I'm doing it, but everybody has different methods depending on their experience, I suppose. So now we've got to put the bottom part in. Okay, now I'm just going to double check where we are with this. I think it goes like that. Now I'm just going to check the laptop, because I'm pretty sure that will line up like that. So we'll check the drawing. Let's do a little dry run. So if that hole there lines up with that hole there, then that indicates to me that this goes in flush with that line there. And I'm just looking to see how that lines up with the side. Oop, right, we have an accident. Emergency. That's how fragile this stuff is with that flat. Yeah, don't want that breaking. That's how quick this stuff works. I think what I'm going to have, because it's so delicate, what I'm going to have to do is glue that in place and then worry about this edge later, because I'm just a bit concerned as to whether that should be trimmed or not. I'm a little bit undecided, because the fuselage tapers in. I think I can afford to do this. You know, you don't want to rush. You don't want to rush these things. Take your time. Bit of swarf there anyway, so that needs taking off. There you go. That looks a lot better. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. So I'm gonna glue that in place then. So where's my pencil? So what I'll do, I'll mark it about there, and then I will put the glue underneath. Yeah, so yeah, that's the best policy, I think. Put it on here. Remember, this is foam safe. Do not use CA, normal CA on this. You'll be very unhappy with me if I didn't tell you that. Okay. That is now flush. By the way, flush is an Arab word for money. I spent some time in the Middle East. Mafi flush, I have no money. A little bit of education there. Okay, and now we can glue down that part very carefully. We don't want to glue the door. Oop. Okay, let that go off. Don't need a kicker on there. Let that go off for a few minutes. So for those who were not taking any notice of the first video, this is Zap Foam Safe CA. It's odorless. This one's a medium to thick formula. I find the medium to thick to be very congenial to doing things. The thin stuff is too thin. It's like water, and it will just uncontrollably run everywhere. But just make sure you get it off your fingers. It's really important, because you just lift off the photographic part of the model there. Okay, so that's in. That lifts up okay. Yeah. So we'll just let that do its thing. So that's now flush with that front bit, and it's flush with this part here. You could, if you wanted to, probably run a bit of fine glass paper. This is an 800 grit. You could actually just rub that down there just to make it a little bit more flush. But I want to see how the rest of the floor goes in first. So we have this little ridge here now where the dihedral comes through the back, so that's what we'll be gluing to. So again, we do a little dry fit. Now this part comes out, so we're going to take this part out. What this does, it allows air into the intake of the ducted fan, so it's important that you take this out. Okay, I think it's better to do it while it's on the cutting table. There you go. Oop. Just neatens it up. There you go. So that goes on there, and we'll just see how that looks. Okay, I think weighing it up as to, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to glue it here first, but let's lift up that hatch. We don't want that hatch getting glued in, so what I'll do, I'll take a toothpick, or a cocktail stick as some people call it. Oop. Rust that in there, so that lifts up the hatch, yeah? So it doesn't matter where, particularly if the glue goes there or not. Okay. And then we'll pop that in there. That'll hold it in place while we deal with the rest of it. So let that go off, and then I'll have a little bit of a fiddle around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit it here, okay, because I don't want the video being too long. I'll just let that dry for a minute, okay. So I'll cut it there just for a minute or two. So this is what we end up with. It's all glued in. So there's your top and there's your bottom, so there's only the side to put on. So I think this video's gone on a little bit over time, so I'm going to end it here, and I'll see you in part 3, and hopefully we'll put the side on and we'll move swiftly on to the next part. Thank you very much, and as always, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your mates, and jobs are good. Thank you for your time.